Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Madisonville Marine. For more than 40 years, that's been the destination, folks. For folks wanting to find the best selection of boats in the area at the best prices, the backbone of their business, folks, is repeat customers. People keep coming back to them. Wonder why that is. It's because there's no better place to buy a boat. Find out for yourself, Madisonville Marine. All right, back with former coach Mark Pankratz, media member Josh Ward, former Vol and VFL, it's the same thing, Stirling Hinton, and Mike Griffith. Mike, you wrote something that's good, and put a picture of it up. You wrote something, you talked to an NFL scout who told you some things about the Tennessee football team. The basics are they are soft. They were soft last year, and he specifically pointed to Ethan Wolf. You took a lot of heat for using an anonymous source and for singling out Ethan Wolf, even though on our show earlier today we just singled out all the people who are rising and falling. I didn't see anything odd there, but I'll let you answer me this before these guys tell me whether or not they would have written it. Did you talk to Ethan Wolf and coaches about this before it ran?
Yeah, not the coaches, John, but definitely Ethan Wolf. I mean, in fact, I actually held the article until I had the opportunity to talk to Ethan directly and say, hey, Ethan, there was an NFL scout that had some issues with your physicality. Do you want to talk about that? And Ethan did talk. He talked a lot about it, and he said, you know, if that's an issue, that's something I'm going to spend a lot of time on. And then, of course, I put that in the story and pointed out that Ethan Wolf's a guy that's gained 12 pounds and been one of the hardest workers in the offseason. So, you know, in my job, I do ask a lot of questions, and sometimes I play reporter and I report what they say. Other times I give my opinions. This was a case where I asked an NFL scout an open-ended question, what do you think of Tennessee? Here's what he said.
Josh, this always goes, we'll start with this part. It always goes back to anonymous sources. Mm-hmm. You're basically trusting the person who writes it with an anonymous source. People don't mind anonymous sources when they say something they like. They only hate them when it's something they don't like. As a media guy, your thoughts on anonymous sources?
Yeah, if this story were, if he had written a story about a player who was expected to be a first-round pick, citing an anonymous source, I bet people would have been happy to share that. I would also say that a lot of times people probably don't realize that they are citing anonymous sources. If you say, I'm hearing this or I'm hearing that, you're citing an anonymous source. I'll also add that if Ethan Wolf has a big senior year and an NFL scout says this guy's stock has really risen, Mike will probably write that as well.
Should write it, yeah. And I would think you would. Stirling Hinton, VFL. So VFL's got upset with what Mr. Griffith did. Your thoughts? I'm guessing you weren't a fan of the article.
Well, you know, my thing is, and I've always said, you know, and I've been, you know, criticized on this show about my position with my ceiling in this profession and people in the media. You know, you have the right, you have the power of opinion, you have the right to say what you want to say. I personally went to Ethan Wolf probably before this article was written and said to him, I got you projected as the SEC tight end first team. So I have my opinion. My thing is, it's just an opinion. At the end of the day, you play the game and you play to win. If you put it all out there on the field, the opinions change.
Mark Pankratz is a former coach. Somebody writes that. You've seen that. It wasn't that far. I don't think I would have written it, but I see where I'm not to the point where that's horrific. I try not to. I would have probably soft pedaled it a little bit, but I didn't have a problem with what he did. As a coach, though, would you have a problem if that had been your team he's talking about?
Well, it depends on the ego of the coach or the personality of the coach. You know, a Butch Jones personality might be different than a Conzo Martin's type, you know, or Bruce Pearl and a Conzo. But for one, I would say, well, there's a reason we made a change at the strength coach, right? That's why football changed, because there was a lack of toughness. If Butch was happy with the toughness, he might not have made that change. I would use it as motivation. I would use it in a way, in the right way, to use it to some of the guys. Maybe it's to Ethan, but to say, hey, look, here's what all these kids, all they care about is making money at the game and playing football. And if there's somebody out there saying you're not tough enough to play in the league, you show that to some of these kids, I promise you they're going to try to push out an extra rep in the bench. I promise you they're going to try to win that one-on-one battle. So I would use it as motivation.
Okay. The only issue I would have is I'm probably a little too easy on players usually. Now, if it's Tyler Bray, if it's a taunter, if it's somebody who taunts, somebody who gets in trouble repeatedly, gloves are off. I'll say you're a punk. But that's just a difference in personality. I think the thing was overblown a little bit. A lot of people don't. I had people tell me, we're not going to watch the show today or ever again if you have Mike Griffith on there. And as you'll see, if you tell me not to do something, it doesn't work out well for you. But here's the thing. Now you've got to go win those people back by covering them honestly and fairly.
You know, John, I don't change my approach. I don't apologize for doing my job, and I get respect from players and coaches because they know that good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to write what I believe. My reporting is well researched. Mark's a guy, in fact, I covered his teams. I don't think anybody doubts my credibility or my honesty, and so that's just me doing my job.
Yay
I'm
or
not gonna
nay,
try
did
and
the
win
coaches, did anybody reach out to you upset with it?
No, you know, I stood in front of Larry Scott. He didn't say a word. In fact, he says he wants purpose and violence this year. So listen to the coaches and what they're saying.
All right, everybody got their turn. Very good. When we come back, we've got a few special things to close with here on our 50th anniversary show. We'll tell you about our overtime segment as well. Come on back on the show.